Thank you, Jen. This is Nathan Stelter. I'm the Vice President for Business Development and Marketing here at the Stelter Company. Excited to have all of you here for our most recent installment of our Stelter 2017 webinar series. We've had some great speakers over not only this year, but previous years, including Scott Lumpkin, Jeff Comfort, amongst others, and are excited to bring a great presentation on metrics that motivate from Ann Melvin today. Before introducing Ann, I want to just share with you, if you are interested in signing up for any of our upcoming webinars for this year, please do go to stelter.com/webinars. Chris White will be talking about some tax legislation updates come September. You will hear a presentation from myself and Cheryl Sturm, our Director of Marketing Research, on what boomers need to know, or matures to boomers, what planning professionals need to know, and then we'll end the year in December with Greg Sharkey, former NCPP board member, or PPP board member from the Nature Conservancy, talking about questions to start gift planning. And you can always find all of our previous webinars archived there as well. Today I'd like to introduce to you Ann Melvin. Ann Melvin, some of you may have heard or seen. She too will be speaking at the upcoming NCPP conference here in Baltimore. Ann is the Director of Training and Education, Alumni Affairs and Development at Harvard University. She's worked as both a volunteer and a professional in the field of development for over 2 decades, holding positions of increasing responsibility at various schools at Harvard University, including Harvard College, the Harvard School of Public Health, and Harvard Central University Development Office. In 8 different positions at Harvard, her experience has run the gamut of development's major functions, having career stops in the annual fund, in major gifts, stewardship, gift planning, and operations. For the past 4 years, Ann has directed the fundraiser training and overall development education program at Harvard's Central Development Office. Ann is currently a member of the AFP, the National Association of Charitable Gift Planners, and the NCGP Leadership Institute. She speaks regularly around the country to professional development organizations specializing in donor motivation, gift planning, gift solicitation, and other topics critical for successful frontline work. She trains nonprofit development staff nationwide through her private practice, ATM Consulting, among various volunteer activities, and it also serves on the board of the Wellesley Education Foundation, the Columbus Beach Club, the Hale Manus Academy, and she fundraises for her alma mater. Prior to joining Harvard, Ann practiced real estate law in the Boston area. She's cum laude graduate of Williams College and holds a JD from the Boston University School of Law. Without further ado, I will hand it over to you, Ann.
Great, Nathan. Thank you very much. So let's get started. Jen, if we could move to the first slide. Great. You know, I'll be honest. Metrics originally sounded to me like something that was just an absolute snooze fest. But a couple years ago, a bunch of MBA types got a hold of our office and said, start using metrics, start measuring yourselves, go to it. But nobody ever said what to measure. So I would go to these seminars and these presentations, you know, national conferences, and I'd wait eagerly for them to tell me. So they'd say, use metrics. And then I'd listen for, okay. And there was silence. They never would tell you what to do. So I started trying to figure out what should we do. And a couple of years ago, our own office started using some metrics. And boy, did I get interested. It kind of excited the nerd in me. Let's see how this works. So today, I'm going to go through what Harvard did, what we learned from our experience. You'll get to learn not to make all the mistakes that we made, and hopefully people can start using some yardsticks that actually matter. So just a quick outline, we're going to talk about the role of positive versus negative motivation to begin with, and then 3 core principles that will guide everything. Because now I'm hoping that each one of you is going to start putting together some metrics for your own office. And believe me, they are not going to be the same metrics for everyone. They really need to be customized. If you remember nothing else, you need to remember that there is a distinction between money and what an office truly needs. We all think it's money. It's not. Money's the end product. This whole presentation is what's going to get you to that money. We're going to do the case study, and then we're going to talk about how that works for us. So that's what we're going to do today. But first, I'm going to start with a little quiz. So which would you do? If your metrics were visits, which most people's metrics are, you've got a choice of A and B. What are you going to do? Your first is you're going to do a 3-day trip to Miami to visit a whole mess of mid to low-level prospects, or you're going to go out to the boondocks to visit one high-level prospect. Got to choose. What are you going to do, A or B? Now, we all know as good fundraisers, B is the right thing to do. But to be honest, if our metrics are to get as many visits as possible, we're motivated to do A. Okay, how would you spend your time? Again, visits are your metric. Are you going to spend it doing some really good work, arranging a visit between your D and a high potential prospect, or are you going to do a filler visit? And I think I did have a visit on a couch exactly like that once. You know, if metrics are visits, you're probably going to do B, although A is the better work. And I think that what we want to do is to motivate people to do their best work, because we know that the best work is what results in gifts. So let's talk about how to do that. And first, we got to talk about motivation, because we got two kinds of motivation. We've got carrots and we've got sticks. Carrots are positive motivation. Sticks are negative motivation. So let's make sure we understand it, okay? Can I ask you, what kind of motivations are these? You can read them. I don't need to read them. Are these carrots? Are these sticks? These are sticks. These are punishments, right? What about this? Or this? What about that one? Carrot or stick? Well, I got to say, most of them are carrots. For me, number 3 is kind of a stick. I'm not dying to play Call of Duty, but whatever. For my son or daughter, these are motivating. And what we want to do is motivate our staff. So let's look at some fundraising metrics that people might use. A certain number of visits, raising a certain dollar amount. Doesn't matter whether it's $100,000, $10 million, or $10,000. Just move the zeros to accommodate your own organization. All of these, frankly, are sticks. It's if you don't do this, then you're not a good employee. You didn't accomplish enough. It's all negative motivation. You know, your metrics should motivate people to move forward, not beat them over the head with a stick. Frankly, what motivates me is more the donuts and the carrots, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. But you want your metrics to motivate, not demotivate, not punish people. Okay, so we're going to talk about these metrics that are nothing but carrots. We want to stuff our employees full of carrots. And here are the 3 core principles for metrics that motivate. Number 1, align the particular officer's own metrics with the nonprofit's goals. 2, incentivize moves that are in an officer's control. That word control is the key in number 2, control, rather than things an officer cannot control. And 3, use carrots, not sticks. Now, once you've read this slide and understand it, you can basically go back to thumbing your phone and reading your email now, because this is everything you need to do. The rest of the presentation will just go through how you do 1, 2, and 3. So if you still want to do that and you're still with me, let's keep moving on. So let's look at number 1, align the officer's personal metrics with the nonprofit's goals. Let's look at that. What are the office's goals? If I had each one of you say what they are, you're all going to shout out, raise money. Well, you know what? That's the end product. But the goals are really the steps along the way that get us there. So the goals are what we need our officers to do to get us to the money. So our goals might be to find prospects. Our goals might be to cultivate those best prospects, solicit them. If you're in gift planning, find bequests. If you're in major gifts, find bequests, because those are the largest gifts people will ever make. Maybe if you're in gift planning, steward those bequest donors. Maybe if you're in gift planning, Get enough of those bequest donors to establish a bequest society. So remember the movie Field of Dreams? Remember how he built the field and then the fox walked out of the cornfield. If you build it, if you do these things, cultivate the best prospects, solicit them, find bequests, steward them. If you do it, the money will come. All right. So if the goal of an office is to find prospects, what kind of metric do you give your officer? It might be something like, let's say 80% of her visits should be for prospecting. If your goal is to cultivate your prospect, then what about the metric? Maybe it's a certain number of significant moves with top prospects. If your goal is you want to establish a bequest society and you need enough people, then the metric should be asking for bequests in a certain number of visits made. So saying that your goal is $100,000 and 100 visits a year doesn't get you what you need. You know, making that the metric doesn't get you what you need to get to that money goal. So what are the office's goals? It's not the money, it's what you need, and you want to use these principles that are going to get you there. So let's look perhaps at some of that a little more deeply now. Okay, can I make a bequest come in the door if I'm a gift planning officer? You know, a bequest is like a piñata. That's a donor, and he's full of all sorts of great gifts for our organization, but they're inside. It's not till he dies that we're going to get all the goodies inside the piñata, right? Can I make it come in the door? No, I cannot make that bequest come in the door. I can certainly secure the bequest, but it may be 20 years. I mean, there is a way for me to make the bequest come in the door. We call it the bequest acceleration team. But frankly, I'm not going there, okay? I'm not a member of the Sopranos. We're not out there killing our donors. So if we're not going to become a bequest acceleration team, what can we do? Well, we can do moves that are in my control. So if I want to get the money from the bequest, perhaps I got to start by asking for a certain number of bequests a year. I just have 15 in here. It could be 30, it could be 50, it could be 2, but a certain number. What else is in my control? Securing. You know, maybe I have to ask for a bunch and secure a smaller number, because you can kiss a lot of frogs, but they don't all turn into princes, right? Let's look at it another way. Maybe you shift that a bit and say, okay, maybe you don't ask for 15 bequests a year, you ask for bequests on a certain percentage, 1 out of 5 visits. You need to ask for a bequest, and you pick which those are going to be. You've got good judgment. It's your donor pool, but 20%, 1 out of 5, you got to be asking for bequests. Here's another way that's in my control. Maybe I review a prospect list a couple times a year, every quarter with my supervisor for bequest prospects. If you play golf, you know that when you finish the swing, you're supposed to look where you want the ball to go. And if you look there, then the ball's more likely to go there. If you review that list and find a whole bunch of great bequest prospects, it's a lot more likely that officer is then going to go ask for a bequest when she goes on that visit, right? Once you've looked there, you're like, oh, well, I can't ignore that and that and that. So if you do it, those gifts or bequests will come. It's the Field of Dreams principle. Build it, do the move that you need to make, and the gifts will come in the door, whether it's a major gift or whether it's a planned gift. All right, so incentivize moves that are in the officer's control, not things that they can't control. I can't control when that bequest comes in the door. All right. So let's look at what else is in my control, and let's look more at major gifts. Now, the canard in major gifts is it takes about 7 moves to get a gift in the door. So I've got 7 suitcases symbolizing each of those 7 moves. I kind of wrote down a list of what I thought it would take to get a gift in the door. It actually came out to be about 11. So sometimes it's more than 7, sometimes it's fewer, but it's about 7. And if you do that, you've set yourself up for success and you're going to hopefully get the gift after that. But that's the good setup, right? So what about making each one of those a metric? You know, each one of these moves is the metric itself, because each one of these is good work. If I send more information to the prospect that they've asked about financial aid, if number 3, I get them to attend an event, if number 5, I ask them to host an event, I have now, that's in my control to ask them to do that, to move them closer to making a gift. So this is that second principle, incentivizing moves in an officer's control. I can control how much effort and time that I spend working with that prospect to get them to come to our campus, meet with a volunteer, and then eventually get the gift. But look at our traditional metrics, which are going to be things like visits. Here, only the highlighted items, 1, 4, 8, and then 12, getting the gift, you know, for dollar goals, are going to get counted. All those other moves that are grayed out, it's like I didn't do them. It's like I didn't come to work that day. It's like my boss doesn't appreciate me when I get somebody to join a committee, to host an event. Why not motivate me to do the good work that you want me to do? Let's look at it another way. Here I've kind of listed everything that I might do in a week. I might write a briefing. I got to go to office meetings. I might solicit somebody. I might create an email marketing piece. I might write thank you notes. I'm going to be having more internal meetings. All of that stuff is what I need to do to get my job done. But in traditional metrics where you get credit for visits and gifts, it's like I didn't even show up for work about 3 days that week. I'm only getting credit for a little bit of the work that I'm actually doing. That's very demotivating. So I suggest that you create metrics that give you credit for all of the stuff that you want me as an officer doing. Now, you know, granted, you look at number 5, office meeting, 9, office meeting, 13, internal meeting. All that is stuff that we need to do to, you know, make the gears move. But look at all that enriched work in red that I could be doing, that you want me to be doing. Asking a prospect to host an event, visiting a prospect, yes. Writing a proposal, writing a briefing for an event that the prospects are all going to go to. All that is work that's really going to move the needle. So give people credit for it. That's motivating. And it's in my control. And then the final principle is carrots, not sticks. I mean, I think we've talked enough about this now. It's motivating for me, the officer, to do good work. And that, you know, I think we all ultimately want to do the best work for our organization. So give me credit when I do good work, not just when I do a visit and not just when I bring the gift in the door. So if you think about structuring your metrics to reward your officers for the things that you want them to do, you're going to come up with the right set of metrics. It's pretty simple. Just pile those carrots on. All right, so let's switch gears and let's look at what actually we did at Harvard. We put on a brand new metric program, and we did it with several of our groups, major gifts, leadership gifts, gift planning. I'm just going to talk about major and gift planning simply because of time. And hopefully you'll get a hang for what one might want to do. Okay, so we used our core principles, and we shaped the metrics around that. Now we get into the part where I will reveal the great Oz and show you what did those metrics actually look like. Kind of we'll go behind the scenes and see what's behind the smoke and the mirrors. So for major gifts, we had the first metric is around donor activity. We asked an officer to complete 225 significant moves. A significant move might be writing a proposal, getting somebody to visit with a professor, getting a donor to a significant event, asking them to host an event, asking them to be on a committee, and them accepting. So complete 225 significant moves, including both strategy tasks, which is kind of a move ahead of time. In other words, you've strategized, I want them to join this committee, and then you make it happen. So complete your strategy tasks and do 115 visits. Now that was down from 140. So we reduced the number of visits to give them more time to work on other stuff that was important. And as part of this, we said 20% of the visits that you do must be for solicitation. Harvard's a mature organization. We've got people all along the pipeline. So 1 out of 5 visits, ask them for a gift. Really makes you focus your attention on, oh boy, am I visiting the right people, or am I just doing filler visits? Then 90% of those strategy tasks where I have said, this would be a good move for this person, must be for the top 25. And that means I need to make a list. Who are my top 25 prospects this fiscal year? So 90% of those strategy tasks for your top 25 have to be completed. And why not 100%? Shouldn't we make it? Shouldn't we, strive for the best? Well, because making 100% happen is not within my control. I can't make somebody join a committee. I can't make them attend an event. But boy, if I try hard enough and I ask enough people, I'm going to get the job done, right? Then 90% of the gift asks that I put in the system must be made. Again, I may have somebody in Kansas City who is my top prospect, but he keeps refusing my visit. I can't make him take my visit so that I can ask him for a gift, but I don't want to take him off my top list, or I'm not going to focus on him, am I? So 90%, so a majority of them have to be made. And then at the end of the year, identify 2 bequest intentions. Next, facilitate 2 events, put them on, execute them. And then lastly, execute the moves management system for your top prospects. So remember how we talked about we had identified top 25, you put in strategy tasks for them, make it happen, do it. All right, and then because we were pre-campaign, remember how I said figure out what your office needs? Our office needed people to cultivate and ask in the upcoming campaign. Well, to do that, we got to set people up. So one of the goals for Major Gifts was to document a strategy for our top prospects with a $1 million plus campaign target. You got to figure out what you're going to do with those people. And also document a strategy for your top 25 prospect list by October 1st. That would be by the end of our first quarter. In other words, set yourself up for success in that fiscal year by making sure you've got strategy for your top 25 people who you're going to ask for a gift. And then refresh it, meaning look at it. Is it right? Is it wrong? Does it need to be modified? Every quarter. Okay, moving on to gift planning. What kind of metrics do we have for gift planning? Very similar, but slightly different because gift planning is a different beast. So complete 225 significant moves. That's exactly the same, including 35 plus strategy tasks. Now, with gift planning is much more reactive to proposals that have gone out. I can't strategize for somebody who I don't even know if he or she is going to come in the door until I do a mailing and they respond to it. So, but I can strategize for people who I know are along the way to making a gift plan or a bequest. So fewer strategy tasks for the gift planning folks, and I was one of the gift planning folks, and 90 visits, down from 100. For gift planning folks, a quarter of the visits that you do have to be for a gift discussion. Now, not a solicitation. Why? Because gift planning is different. A lot of times you don't set people up for an ask per se. You have a discussion and feel out whether or not they're interested in doing gift planning or not. Make significant moves with 80% of your top 25. And for gift planning, we had a top 25 requirement list as well. And because they wanted us gift planners to work with the major gift officers, we had a metric that our top 25 had to include about 5 prospects, 25%, who were assigned to major gift officers. That would automatically make me have to coordinate with my major gift officers. Next, 20% of visits to rated but unassigned prospects, because one of the needs of the office was we had this whole list of unassigned prospects that nobody was taking care of. So in order to kind of motivate us to go take care of them, 1 in 5 visits had to be to one of these people. Now that's going to get me out on the road and, plowing through that list of unassigned prospects. And then for us, identify 2 new bequest intentions. Now you may think, oh my gosh, you're a gift planning officer? All you had to do was 2? Well, we're a mature office. Many people have already told us that they've got a gift planning bequest intention. So we've harvested a lot of that week. So it's going to be harder to find them in our pool where we already know about a lot of them. Then we needed to create a top 25 list by October, by the end of the first quarter. And that was it for gift planning. Those are the metrics for gift planning. Now, if you're wondering about writing these down, Jen is going to get you the slides afterwards. So don't worry about anything that's here. You can get copies of. So don't worry about writing if you don't want to be jotting it all down. So what is a significant move? I'm not going to read through these, but I'll just pick a couple. Getting a prospect to host a dinner or an event is significant. Sending them a gift proposal is significant. Not all phone calls are significant, but if you're discussing a gift and moving it, really driving it towards the goal line, that's a significant move. What is not significant are things like sending a blast email, so a blast holiday card or a happy birthday card. That's not particularly personalized. Chatting with a prospect at an event, unless you're talking about a gift, that is not a significant move. And we didn't even consider a handwritten thank you note because, frankly, that's part of what you do, but it's not really driving towards the goal line. So how did people like it? I actually went around and did a survey after all of this, and this is kind of my reaction. Didn't get a lot of people loving it. I'm going to be honest. But let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. There was still plenty that was good. So let's dive down a little bit more deeply into what they did not like. And believe me, there was a lot of complaints going on. And I got to tell you, if you're Elizabeth Barrett Browning and had to wear your hair like that, I'd be pretty unhappy too. But it was really difficult to input into the system. Our system didn't take it in, so many people had to create shadow systems to input all of their significant moves. People didn't like our nomenclature. Nobody understood what a strategy task was and a significant move. How are they different? We eventually just merged them. People did not like how much time they had to do documenting it. And people were arguing too many significant moves, not enough significant moves, whatever it is, 225, no one liked it. And then it was just confusing. What's a significant move? What's a visit? Yeah, let's just decouple them. So I asked people on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the worst system ever and 10 being the best system ever, it got a 4. On average, our officers rated it a 4, below average. They did not like this system. But in my survey, I got some interesting comments. Let's go through them. Needing to document these significant moves helped me keep them top of mind. Discussing the top 25 a couple times a year and organizing this made me start thinking longer term, not just I'm on to the next thing. It focused their thinking onto what's going to motivate this donor to give. What else can I do? People who liked numbers actually thought it was kind of fun. And people appreciated reviewing their top 25 twice a year and talking about strategy and talking about next steps. And amazingly, they said this wouldn't have happened without these metrics. So let's pull out some of the keywords. people mentioned those significant moves, those top 25 just kept coming back again and again and again as things that actually made them do better work. So I said, so did these metrics make you a better fundraiser? You know, people said, we're referring to these now. We've got a common nomenclature. We talk about, is she one of your top 25s in meetings? And this changes the mind frame. Indeed, this made me a better fundraiser. They're thinking longer term. For managers, those next steps were sort of like, okay, boom, you're done. You've got the next thing. You know what it is. You're all set up. It's great. And when you're talking with other people about their next steps, it helps your colleagues do better work. You know, not everyone thought it made them a better fundraiser. I did the same level of work as last year, but it definitely got people thinking in new ways and working in different ways. And who liked it, who didn't? Well, I'll tell you, people who like to kind of check things off their list of things done, or to say, I got 3 significant moves today at work, they liked it. People who were into numbers, into measuring things, they particularly liked it. People who like to get sort of positive reinforcement. Okay, go. You've gotten 12 significant moves this week. Found it very motivating. Very motivating. Not everyone clicked with the new metrics. We found that people who were sort of, more artsy, ethereal, don't like the bright lines of boxes, black and white, prefer to work more in the areas of gray, more free form. They didn't like it so much. And we found that our older fundraisers didn't like it quite as much. Perhaps that's because some of the more experienced fundraisers intuitively are doing the right stuff without having a box to put around it. For them, it was demotivating, not motivating. So, I'm not going to say across the board it was a win, because it was not. But we learned a couple of surprising things. Number one, focusing attention on that top 25 made you focus on what you needed to. Now, this is what I would call why weren't we doing that before? I don't know, but we weren't. Number two, putting in the next steps. What are you going to do next with this prospect? Helps with transition. We had one major employee one major prospect at Facebook. When the officer who was managing this particular individual left, they had 25 steps all lined up for the next person to just hit the ground running. And we also learned, hey, it's not working with everybody. Don't expect it to be the magic wand that's going to solve all your problems. So what's the final verdict on the new metrics? And we revamped it after 6 months. We changed the nomenclature. We changed some of the stuff around. We focused on just 3 to 5 next steps, and mainly for your top 25. We got rid of this whole strategy task word that nobody understood anyway. We focused really like a laser on the significant moves for the top 25, especially for us in planned giving. And we realized that those quarterly reviews with your manager is what really kind of shaped you up, and that was what the focus was on then. So then, remember in the mid-year, they rated it a 4. At the end of the year, the average score, with 10 being the best, was 6.8. So well above average, almost a 7. Again, not a 10, not an absolute home run. Not everybody liked it. But with these modifications and tweaks, it got a lot better. So don't expect when you put in the new system that within 2 months, everyone's going to be walking around with smiles on their face, because it just doesn't work that way. All right, so some of our takeaways are that having a top 25 list is really important, and that making sure that you're focusing on significant moves with your top people, whether they're your top 25 or your top 50 or whatever it might be, that is what moved the needle. And that having a metric for a minimum number of significant moves, so that people are urged, officers are urged to do the important work, not filler work. That was a key takeaway for success. And then those regular quarterly reviews with your manager. Hold your feet to the fire, and it just automatically makes you do better work, because you're talking about what you should be doing, right? All right, so now how do we apply this to your shop? Because Harvard is not the traditional shop. Harvard is a large shop. So what do? I kind of bifurcated or trifurcated it into the Goldilocks story. You know, Harvard is the Papa Bear over there on the right-hand corner, the big, huge behemoth, the major, mature, large organization with a well-cultivated alumni population. But you might be the Mama Bear in the middle. You're a mid-level organization. Maybe you've been in operation for 10 or 15 years, or maybe you're a long-term organization but with a smaller staff, and you're not quite the behemoth. Or you might be on the far left, the Baby Bear, and you're a new organization. You don't have a large donor base yet. You're just building up your prospects, or you're a one-person shop, and you don't have the capability to do everything. So think about what the needs are for your shop, and I'll go through how you might create some metrics for your size shop. Okay, let's remember our essential principles. Align the officers, even if you've just got one officer, his or her personal metrics with the nonprofit's goals. Remember, it's not money. It's the things that are going to get us the money, right? It's the field of dreams. If you build it, if you do those steps, the gifts will come. What are those steps that we want you to do? That's our first principle. Then incentivize moves that the officer can control, not things that he or she cannot control. And third, motivate. Don't demotivate. Don't punish. All right. So this is what I call sort of a dim sum. You know, in dim sum, they bring a whole bunch of stuff by your table, and you pick one or two things off the cart that you want to eat. I'm going to throw a whole bunch of stuff at you. This does not mean you have to eat every single one of them. You don't have to pick every one of them. But you choose what you think might be a good metric for your shop. All right, so the office need for all of us is prospecting. What might a metric be? Well, for the Baby Bear shop, maybe we want to produce a couple of marketing touches. Maybe we want to start our first web page. Maybe we want to say that a good number of our visits are going to be for prospecting. Why? Because we don't have any. Because we don't have that many people to cultivate yet, and we certainly don't have a lot to solicit because they're not in the pipeline yet. So a major portion, it could be 70, it could be 90, of those visits are going to be for prospecting. What if we're a Mama Bear shop, a mid-size shop? Maybe for prospecting, we might want to have one of these as our metric. A couple more marketing touches a year. Maybe we're going to have an event. Perhaps where our visit goal is going to be 30% prospecting because I want to do a little bit less. I still got a prospect, but I want to have some more time to do cultivation and then solicitation visits. So fewer, maybe 40. And if you're the large Papa Bear organization, maybe you've got a more robust program because you've got more staff and you can do, say, 20 marketing touches a year. What about events? Do you want to do them? Do you not want to do them? And maybe 20% of your visits. That 20% sounds about right for a mature organization because you're going to be doing a lot more visits for cultivation and more visits for solicitation. So you see, one number doesn't make it for all three different types of organizations because you've got different needs. Okay, let's take another need of the office. Remember, our need is not money. Our need is what we do to get to money, and cultivating is what we do to get to money. You're a Baby Bear shop. What might a metric be? Maybe you just notate. At that point, if you don't have a lot of prospects, you're just marking down what significant moves you made. You might not even be in a position to make a lot of significant moves because you're so busy prospecting. Maybe you want to have some events to cultivate people. Maybe you want to have a target of 50 cultivation visits a year. Maybe all of them are going to be, maybe you're going to spend all of your time doing visits and not much time at all doing events. It's up to you and your shop and where you want to spend your time. Mama Bear shop for cultivating, maybe you're going to have, say, 40% of your visits are prospecting and 40% are going to be cultivation. And that would mean another 20 is going to be for asking for gifts. Maybe that's the right balance for you. Perhaps you'd like to, at this point, you're probably in a position to define your top 25 prospects. And maybe you'd be willing to make significant moves with a certain percentage of them, or to do X number of significant moves a year. Maybe 150 is the right number for you. You're definitely going to be on track to make, say, 100 or 80 visits a year, some significant number like that for cultivation. If you're a big Papa Bear shop, you're definitely in a position to define who your top 25 prospects are, and you might want to do significant moves to, say, 80% of them. I put question marks next to most of these because I don't want to define for you. I'm suggesting for you. Maybe here's another metric: hold quarterly plan-giving volunteer board meetings. Maybe you want to do that, maybe you don't for your organization. What about significant moves? Is it 150? Is it 250? Is it 300? What might your visits be a year? So this is a way to kind of think about the metrics that you might, again, dim sum, pick and choose. What about soliciting? Well, if you're in a tiny shop, are you in a position to do any at all? Okay, maybe you've got a small core of loyalists. What about asking them for a bequest gift? Maybe that's the kind of soliciting you want to do. Do you want to have dollar goals? If you're a baby bear organization, it may not be realistic at this point. You may need to develop a little bit further. Again, that's for you to answer, not for me to tell you. If you're a medium-sized shop, what might your soliciting metrics be? Maybe 20% of your visits for solicitations. Secure a couple of bequest intentions might be a metric. Maybe ask for a certain number of bequests in your visits. What about dollar goals? Do you want them? Big bear organization? These might be your type of metrics. Again, pick and choose. And I'll just give you a quick story of my own experience with metrics. You know, here I was a gift planning officer. I had a lot of years of experience under my belt. I knew I should be asking for requests all the time. But it wasn't until I had a metric for a certain number of bequest intentions a year that I really started honing in on it. In fact, I remember every time I got ready for a trip, I'd go through all my list of people that I'm visiting, and I'd put down on my notes, okay, I can ask Jane for a bequest. Okay, Bob's already got a bequest, so I can't ask him. Then there's Larry. He's got a bequest. I can't ask for one from him. What about Samuel? Oh, I don't know. Let me go look it up. I don't know if he's got one. Oh, he doesn't have a bequest. I can ask him for a bequest. I remember once I was getting on the plane. I was looking over my notes, and I found somebody that I didn't know if they had a bequest or not, and they were ripe for asking. I remember frantically dialing my assistant going, does this person have a bequest? I could ask him. I need that metric. I was suddenly driven by the metric to do the kind of work that intellectually I knew I should have been doing all along, and I wasn't doing it as focused until I had that metric. So that's what metrics really did for me. And at this point, I'd love to take questions if I could. So I'm going to turn it over, Jen, to you and Nathan to tell me what people are asking.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Ann. Fantastic. We do have some questions that came in, so let's go ahead and get started. We have one from Chris, and he is asking, do you have suggestions on the best way to communicate a metric system like this to leadership who may only focus on dollars raised?
Oh, great question. Yes. I would first of all communicate what the core principles, especially that principle of let's motivate our officers to do things that they can do. And one of the best ways to communicate that is by asking questions. You know, the question I asked you all in the seminar. Can I make a bequest come in the door? No, I can't. I have to kill my prospect to make it come in the door. Am I going to do that? No. So, you know, can I make a gift come, can I make a major gift come in the door? I cannot make anybody give. What I can do is properly set them up for success by picking the right people, cultivating them, doing the moves, and then making a direct solicitation. So hold me accountable for those things that I can do, not for the thing that I can't do. You can certainly say, Ann, you have to ask for X number of gifts per year, but you can't always make that money flow. What you can do, though, is to say you have to at least go out there and ask. So that is, I think, the way you communicate the principles behind what you're doing. And I would use the field of dreams analogy. If you do, don't you think that if we ask our officers to do the right kind of moves that we want them to do, the gifts will come in the door? Ask that question. So that's what I do. Next.
Terrific, Ann. Yeah, we had a couple different folks ask questions around what database system or software are you using for tracking moves management at first? Were you able to find a better system for tracking significant moves that connected this data to the client or donor record?
We were not able to do that. We did not find a system that did it. Now, in all honesty, we had a management turnover, and that system, the metrics eventually morphed and changed and slowly melted away. So we didn't make as big a hunt for that system, and we basically used a shadow system. I think since that time, and this was in fiscal year 12 that we did this, that companies have been more responsive to the needs of clients in creating systems that will track this kind of stuff. So I don't know if there's a best software. Obviously, people are looking for a recommendation. I don't yet have it. And if other people have found software that does track this kind of stuff, I'd love it if you would quickly write it in the questions and tell Jen and Nathan, and maybe that would help other people to find the software they need.
Yeah, and we did have one person write in and said that Donor Perfect software will do that tracking for you. So, and I will share if anyone else sends a question about that or an answer in about that. The next one comes from Gary, and actually we have a couple that are asking around the same type of a question, wondering if you can share how this change in your metric tracking produced more gifts or larger gifts, or ended up being more successful for your office?
That's a great question, and that's a natural follow-on question. I think that this system would have had to have been in place sort of for, say, a 3-year period of time so that you could see trends. As all of you know, gifts can be very spiky one year or another because of a large gift that comes in one year that doesn't come in. So what you want to do is look at long-term trends. So since the system, as I said, sort of melted away over a period of time, we did not have that kind of 3-year period of history such that we could have shown that. So I would recommend that if anyone wants to try this, if you are management yourself, and I did notice that there were a number of vice presidents for development on this seminar, don't expect that you're going to be able to track immediately a spike up in gifts. I think what you're going to track is a spike up in the kind of habits and performance that are going to lead to gifts, and that over time you should be able to see an uptick in gifts. And if you don't, you know what? That's data. That's great data. But unfortunately, I cannot tell you that we have that data because the system, with all human systems, there's frailties and failabilities, and we had a management turnover that didn't lead to a 3-year kind of tracking of this system.
Terrific. I had a couple folks ring in here, Ann, Vanessa and Melanie, that also outside of Donor Perfect Razor's Edge can be set up to track these actions, you know, qualification, explore area of interest, ask, etc. Just as an FYI for the group. Next question from Deborah. Board members look for goals with dollars and number of donors, the nouns. You state that we should be focusing on the verbs. What we do to get the money and the numbers. What do you suggest we show the board for the goals for the year?
Oh, I love that, the nouns and the verbs. You know, they ask for those because they've always asked for those. It's hard to get people to change their thinking, but that's what boards think they're supposed to do. I'll give you an analogy. You know, remember a couple of years ago, Charity Star, Charity Navistar, what am I thinking? Charity Navigation, you know, focused on how much money did it take to raise $1. And you weren't considered to be a good charity unless you spent fewer pennies on the dollar to raise money. But they weren't looking at the impact. What you want to do is look, how impactful is that charity? If you've got one charity that spends very little money to raise money, but isn't very effective, and you've got another charity that spends $5 to raise $100, but is extraordinarily effective I'd say that second charity is the better charity. So what you want to look, what you want to do is to say, we will eventually get you the dollars, but to do that, we need to do the work that's going to get the dollars. And maybe you do the same thing with the boards. You say, should we be holding people accountable for things they don't have in their control? Yes or no? You lead them through questions that get them to the answers that you want them to get to, which is don't hold them accountable for a $100,000 gift. Or in fact, maybe ask the board member. Okay, Sarah, board member, if somebody asks you for a $100,000 gift and you say no, is that a fault of hers? It's your choice, isn't it? You can choose whether you say yes or no. It's not Sarah's choice, or it's not the fundraiser's choice. So why not hold the fundraiser accountable for things she can control, not for things she can't control? Here's what you need to do to get gifts. We're asking our fundraisers to do the things you need to do to get gifts. I guess that's the best I got for you.
And Gary's wondering if there was any staff turnover as a result of the change in how you were being incentivized, and then also opposite that, did the new system lead to higher job satisfaction for your staff?
I don't think we saw turnover because of the metrics. I don't think anybody left because they didn't like the new metric system. In fact, some of those older, more intuitive officers, they did not leave. The people who did leave were moving on to sort of the next step up in their career kind of jobs. And I got to say that towards the end, most people felt pretty good about the metric system. So that was the first question. Did people leave? And the second question, I'm sorry, what was the second half of it? Oh, job satisfaction?
The second. Yeah, did it raise the job satisfaction for your staff?
It definitely raised the job satisfaction for that cohort of people who liked it. Because I would talk to a lot of them, and they felt like, wow, like I can see the visible results. It's like getting a pat on the back for doing the work that I was doing anyway, but nobody ever recognized it before. When I'm setting up a visit on campus with a dean, I'm not getting credit for it because it's not a visit with me, but I know it's good work, and I know I should be doing it, and now I'm getting recognized for it. So for people who like the system, higher job satisfaction. For people who didn't like the system and didn't like the work you had to do putting it in, I would guess probably a little bit lower job satisfaction, but not so low as to cause people to leave.
Terrific. Again, some great questions here from the group. Stephen is curious around if there was a definition of what actually counted as a successful bequest intention discussion with a prospective donor.
Yes, it would. Yeah, we would take people, and before the system and after the metric system, we took people at their word. If they told us that they had made a bequest intention, we marked that down as a new bequest intention. We would ask them if they would document it, if they'd give us a piece of their will or the relevant portion of their estate plan, but we didn't require it in order to count it as a secured bequest intention.
And Gary's asking if you got any feedback from your top prospects while you guys were shifting your direction on this. Could they tell that there was a shift in your focus?
I did not hear any feedback. I did not personally get it, nor did I hear from any of my fellow officers that there was any feedback about it. Because frankly, we were still probably working in mostly the same way, except doing more effective work. So none that I know of.
All right, we're getting close to the hour here, so maybe time for one or two more quick questions. Here's just a simple one, just came in from Michelle. How do you value a recognized bequest? Are you guys counting at their full value or discounted?
Let's see, for donor recognition, we would count it at full value. For dollar recognition, we would count it at discounted value. Donor recognition costs you nothing. But if you're trying to do accounting values, how much did we raise for the year? Discounted value.
Okay, and Susan's wondering, back when you were talking about the different metrics and you mentioned events, and she's saying that managing and executing events takes a great deal of time. Did that requirement impact your face-to-face visits?
It sure does. So that's why you want to think, do you want to put more emphasis on events? Do you want to put more emphasis on visits? And so for our major gift officers, they were required to do 2 events. They were generally sort of dinner parties with 12 to 14 people and a senior administrator. So that would be all working with major gift prospects anyway. And so, you know, each individual person at those events was somebody that they would want to be spending good time with anyway. And actually for gift planners, we did not have any event requirement. The gift planners did not rely on events as a way. Every other year we do one donor dinner, but we do a bequest donor dinner, or the lunch actually. But yes, you want to think about, if you're trying to get the word out about your organization, events raises your profile, and you may want to, if you're a new organization, to do more events to raise your profile. And once you get to be known in the community, you could possibly scale back on that. Everything an officer does is a trade-off. Time spent on one thing means less time somewhere else, which is why you first have to clarify your values. Where do you need help in your office? And that's what the officer can spend her time, because you can do events and you can do visits, but you cannot do a lot of both.
Absolutely. And with that, we are going to wrap up. We are out of time. I just want to thank Anne for her time today and her expertise. And I wanted to let everyone on the line know that if you do have additional questions, or one of your questions didn't get answered, Anne is willing to speak with you about those. You can email her at the address on the screen. If you have any questions about Stelter products or services, you can reach out to Nathan, myself, or Stella at stelter.com, and you can always visit our website. And one of the main questions I got throughout the webinar is, this webinar is fantastic. I heard that a lot, and can we get a recording or the slides? And the answer is absolutely. Barring any technical problems, we will have the recording and the slides ready and posted hopefully by Friday. It will be on our website at stelter.com/webinars, and you will receive an email in your inbox from me when that is posted and available to access. And with that, I just want to say thank you once again to Anne. We really appreciate your time and your expertise sharing it with, I think we had close to 400 people on the line today. And thank you all for joining us. And quickly, our next webinar is September 27th with Christopher Hoyt. Again, that's going to be on any tax changes and also gifts of life insurance. You can go to our website at stelter.com to register for that. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great afternoon, everyone. Bye-bye.